You're listening to the Hella Well with Danielle show, a podcast taking women of color on a journey exploring all things wellness and travel related. We're all about showing you how to put on your oxygen mask first and creating lasting self-care habits that will free you to travel the world and live the life you truly desire, and not one you have to fake loving. I'm your host, Danielle Washington. Now let's buckle up and start this journey. Welcome to the Hella Well with Danielle podcast, your weekly mental vacay for the busy woman of color who's on her healing journey and just needs a little bit of help on this journey. Okay, we're still in the beginning of the year, and it's what I like to call 'tis the season for leveling up. It is all about leveling up. Everyone thinking it's a fresh start, it's a new you, you have New Year's resolutions. That's the time when we are doing all these new things and we're making massive changes in our life, whether it's eating healthier, exercising more, going to bed more, taking care of you, honoring yourself, saying no more, whatever it is, it all comes down to one word that could be scary AF, and it's called change. Change, change, change. People don't talk about the fact that change can feel uncomfortable. There's this assumption that change is easy. You can go online and find 50 million blogs that talk about, 3 ways that you can add change to your life with ease, regardless of the situation. Heck, I've even done a podcast on how to make tiny habits and to make changes. And it's a good process. But even in that podcast episode and now the 50 million blogs you can find online, they're not talking about the uncomfortable side of change. And in this season of leveling up, I think it's time to have that conversation. Like when you are used to chaos in your life, or you're used to always being busy, going, it may feel mad uncomfortable to actually rest. You may feel like you're being lazy. And I wanted to have this conversation to say that change doesn't always feel good, and that is normal. But when you look online, you read these blogs or you read a book about how to change, they're not telling you that there's this uncomfortable side. There's this dark side of change. It's like looking at it like a mountain. You go on you're climbing up a mountain, on the other side of the mountain is that pot of gold. It's that happiness. It's that joy. It's that love. It's the life that you've been desiring. But you gotta get over the mountain. And sometimes getting over the mountain takes a little bit of effort. You may start sweating. It feels uncomfortable. But knowing that there's something that's great on the other side doesn't make you be like, oh, okay, it's just going to be easy. It's just going to be simple. I can totally do this. Change takes time. And I don't think we talk about the time that it takes. It's not just like, oh, I decided to change and poof, life is going to be better. No, our brain doesn't work that way. Our brain doesn't process change that way. Our brain does not process change as quickly as the decision to say, I'm going to eat green vegetables. Like this weekend, I've been doing this class and it was about anatomy and we're learning all these different things. And I'm like, oh my God, are you telling me that eating croissants is not good for my life? I love croissants. And I told myself, I'm going to change. I'm going to eat, green vegetables for one full day, at least once a week. And that's a major change. And I made that decision not recognizing that my body and my mind are like, hold up, sis. That's not our normal game plan. Normally we go to the bakery, we get our croissant, we may get ourselves a half loaf of bread. We like doing these other things. And it wasn't taking into account that, yes, I made a choice, but my body and my mind hadn't caught up to that choice. We weren't running the same race. So when you're making these big changes, especially in the beginning of the year, whether you're doing the beginning of the year or just not, when you're making changes in your life, no matter what kind of change, you need to understand and allow and give grace to your mind and your body that it takes time. There's going to be challenges to the ego. The ego is there not to say that you're like, oh, I'm all that and da-da-da-da. The ego is there to keep you safe, to keep you familiar. And that's the opposite of change. So when you make any types of change, the ego goes on alert like, oh my God, what just happened? The body and mind are on fire. Oh my God, we need to start doing something because something is not right. Something is not familiar. And it doesn't know that this not familiar thing is something you're doing for the betterment of your life. It just knows that this ain't familiar, so we've got to shut this down. We need to get back into our comfort zone. And our comfort zone, honestly, is the biggest roadblock to our change. Our comfort zone is the biggest roadblock to our happiness. And it doesn't have to be that way. But when you go into the ideal of making changes and not being aware of the fact that there might be some uncomfortable moments, there may be some discomfort, then you're fooling yourself, and then you wonder why the change didn't happen, and then you tell yourself, oh, you allow the ego, you allow the inner critic to tell you, oh, I'm just not good enough to do this. Like, it just didn't work out for me. Like, I'm not ready yet. It doesn't mean you're not ready. It just means that you might have not prepared yourself for the uncomfortable side of change. And that's what I want this episode to be about, is letting you know that change is not always going to be comfortable. Change takes time. It's not familiar. Change involves, if you're going from like this old person, the old you, to something new, it involves letting go. It involves being fearful, but not just being fearful, but being able to be fearful and still being able to move forward. And that ain't always easy. Like, there's been times when I'm like, I know that I want to do better. I know that life that I was living of being a people pleaser, trying to always be there for everyone else and do all these things and always feeling past my capacity or having people do me wrong. And I feel like, well, maybe I just keep them around. I just need more friends. And so I should just keep these people around that are not treating me better. But when I started making those changes, it didn't feel comfortable. And it felt fearful that, well, if I let go of this person, if I make this change, am I going to be alone? And what does that say if I'm alone? But being able to learn that I can have that fear of being alone, but still move forward and change, that is the game changer. And recognizing that change also involves some obstacles, and it sometimes is repeat obstacles or repeat challenges. Like, change is not a one and done situation. I wish I can say, I'm going to only eat green vegetables and I'm going to be healthy, I'm going to be happy, and that's the life I'm going to have. I'd love to say it's a one and done fix, and it's not. No matter what kind of change, how big or small, change is not a one or done thing. It took you years, months, hours, and decades to get to where you are, to what is comfortable for you. So it's going to take some time for you to get through the comfortable stage of, oh, wait, we're shifting something to create a new comfort level. And so change is a living system. It's like an onion. It's like it has all these different layers. I think about my journey in changing, being a quote unquote fixer, wanting to be there for everyone, wanting to tell everything that I knew. Part of what was my way of validating myself was to be able to say, oh, look, I have this information. I can share it with people. That's how I validated my worth, was by being there for everything, being there for everyone. But in order for me to be there for everyone, I had to have all this knowledge. It took me so many years to realize that I became a course junkie. Yes, I do like learning, and it is something that it's kind of a hobby to some degree, but a huge undercurrent of the root of this need for knowledge and this thirst for knowledge was I needed to have the knowledge so I can feel worthy, so I can feel in a space that I was able to give, and I needed to give past my capacity. So that meant that I could be there for any situation at any time of the day. And that was exhausting. And little by little, I realized, I don't really like this exhausting feeling. I'm going to try not to be a fixer. And changing the habits, I would do it, and then I would go back. And then I realized, dang, you're back where you were before. You're feeling extended. You're doing all these different things. You're telling people all these different things that you need, that you know. And then I would go through a point where I'm like, okay, let's go through the change again. And so it's like this 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And that's change. There's times where you have to go back and forth. There's time that realize that it is a living system, that it doesn't just happen one and done, but there's going back and forth. There's coming back to it. Change is not a straight path. I wish it was a straight path. Man, imagine if life would be like if change was a straight path. Like you just make the decision, you take the path, and boom, you're there. But it's not. At least not for me, and I don't think it is that way for most people. You may feel uncomfortable. And as I was talking before, you may even revert back to previous habits. And that's normal. It's not oh my God, I reverted backwards. And what does that say about me? I couldn't be strong enough to make this change. And I think oftentimes, especially in the season of leveling up, we have all these grandiose ideals and we have all these New Year's resolutions where, and side note, I think most of us make too many New Year's resolutions. And that's when you're trying to change too much at one time, it becomes overwhelming. And that's a huge reason why we revert backwards. But the other part of that reverting backwards is then we start shaming ourselves like, dang, I didn't do that. I said I was going to exercise and, you went back to this, and we start bullying ourselves when the reality of all, when you're making these changes in your life, how big or small, the uncomfortableness, the getting out of your comfort zone, the discomfort that feels makes it easy to want to cozy back up with the comfort zone. Makes it easy to cozy back up to those previous habits. They may not be the habits that you want to be invoking right now in your life, but it's the habits that you know. And sometimes that uncomfortableness is so uncomfortable that you're like, I can't do this. And so I want you to know that that's okay. That's okay. It is part of the ideal of change. Sometimes in change, we revert backwards. The reality of it all is there's no crystal ball to give you your future when you're making these changes. There's no guarantee that if I make this change, even though I feel it's for the betterment of my life, it's going to work out. Things are going to be great. I'm going to feel good. There's no crystal ball that says in making this change, I'm not going to have moments of feeling bad. I'm not going to feel alone. I'm not going to feel whatever discomfort, whatever vulnerable feelings you have. Because within change, a huge part of change is being vulnerable. And what does being vulnerable mean? If you listen to Webster, it says it's the capability of being physically or emotionally wounded or damaged. Another definition is the degree to which people or systems are susceptible to harm, degradation, destruction, or being exposed to hostile agent or factor. That all sounds like change to me. Change feels, when you're out of your comfort zone, it feels like you're being emotionally wounded. It feels like you're being damaged. Your body and your mind, your nervous system thinks you're in harm because you're making something that's not comfortable, even though you're doing it for the betterment of your life. So when there is no guaranteed outcome that it's going to work out, sometimes it's like, do I really want to make this change? Do I really want to take one day out of the 7 days of my week to eat only green vegetables? Is that really going to make me feel better? That's the comfort zone saying, I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe you should go back to eating pizza because you love yourself some Round Table pizza. Shout out to Round Table, one of my favorite pizza places. So there is no guarantee. And when there's no guarantee in making these changes, the comfort zone feels really good. It looks really good. It looks like When you've been fasting and you're like, oh my God, if I could just have 12 croissants, it would be fire. But that's what I was talking about before. Our comfort zone is the roadblock. It is the biggest roadblock to your happiness. Being able to surrender to your comfort zone. Let me phrase that. That's not what I meant to say. When you are able to surrender your comfort zone. When you're able to let go of comfort and move in discomfort, that's when you are able to amass the truth about yourself. That's when you're able to move in fear, move in the unknown, move towards leveling up the way that you want, the life that you desire, the life that you deserve. Unmasking I should be this way, I should be that way, and doing what you know in your heart is right for you, or you feel is right for you. You may try this change and realize, this isn't for me. And that's okay too. But being able to get to the point to realize, this didn't work, this wasn't right for me. In order for you to get there, you have to be able to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. I know that sounds crazy, but yes, it's all about being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's how we get through the uncomfortable side of change. That's when we get to our true self. That's when we get to the root of where we're trying to go in leveling up. So in the season of leveling up, 'tis the season to be uncomfortable. 'Tis the season to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's how we make change. I wish you guys the best of wishes and success on your change. I wish you compassion for yourself. I wish you grace for yourself, knowing that you are worthy of these changes. You are worthy of the life you desire. And recognizing that, yes, change is not always easy. There is the uncomfortable side of change. Change takes time. Change involves letting go. It involves being fearful and still moving. It may involve obstacles and repeat obstacles. It is a living system and not a one and done fix. And though there may not be a crystal ball, remembering your why, going back to why am I making this change? Why do I want this change? That will help you going through this dark side. I love you, and I will see you guys next week. Ciao. Thanks for joining us this week on the Hello Well with Danielle show. Make sure to visit our website, hellowellwithdanielle.com, where you can subscribe to our show on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon Music and never miss an episode. Also, you can follow us on social media at Hello Well with Danielle on Facebook and Instagram, and Hello Well Danny on Twitter. And if you like hella love the show and got some good nuggets out of it, know that I'm not too proud to ask for you to please leave a rating or review on iTunes so that we can continue to expand our reach and help other women of color. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I hope to see you next week. Ciao.